Welcome to Train Signal. You're watching a video about delegation of control. In this video, we're going to start off by taking a look at the different types of permissions that you can use in Windows Server 2008. There are many different areas where permissions come into play. We'll also talk about how to configure those permissions. Then we're going to go in and talk about the global Mantix scenario. And we're going to see what dilemmas they're currently facing and talk about how we can solve them. Then I'm going to take you into the operating system itself, show you how to configure certain permissions using the delegation of control wizard. And then I'm going to show you how to create a custom Microsoft Management Console, or custom MMC, or we could even just say custom tool for other users to use. Now, there are many different areas in Windows Server 2008 where we have permissions. We have our NTFS permissions on files and folders. We have our shared folder permissions on our shares, printer permissions on our printers, and then also one other type of permission that we have available to us on a domain controller is Active Directory permissions on all of our Active Directory objects. And although each of these individual areas has its own set of specific permissions, in other words, although we have NTFS, share folder, printer, and Active Directory permissions, they all have their own individual settings, but they are all configured using the exact same concepts. So if you know how to go in and configure the permissions for one, then you know how to go in and configure permissions for all. Now, a couple rules you need to know about configuring permissions. And again, it really doesn't matter which area we're talking about, the rules are the same. Now, on the screen, here I have a picture of NTFS permissions for a folder. Now, permissions can be set as either allow or deny. So as we can see here, there's an allow column and there's a deny column. And the way this works is you add users or groups to your what's called access control list, or more specifically, it's referred to as the discretionary access control list. And then you highlight that user or group and come down here, and then we have a list of different permissions that we can allow or deny to that user or group. Okay, so that's the general idea of how you configure permissions. But now the effective permission for a user who belongs to multiple groups that have different permissions on the same, whether it be NTFS folder, file, shared folder, printer, or Active Directory object, when you have one user who pretty much is listed up here in this top section more than once by being a member of more than one group, well, then the permissions are going to be what's called cumulative. And what we mean by that is, let's say somebody's a member of one group that has been given the allow read permission. And this user is also a member of another group who's been given the allow write permission. Well, the end result for that specific user is going to be read and write. That's what we mean by permissions being cumulative. Now, sometimes it's referred to as the effective permission is the least restrictive. Okay, in other words, if I'm a member of one group that's been granted read and a member of another group that's been granted full control, well, full control would be all of these boxes. So the end result would be, if we say cumulative, would be full control, all the boxes. If we say least restrictive, well, full control is less restrictive than read, so it would still be full control. The only catch is whether you call it cumulative or whether you call it least restrictive, the one rule that you have to include in with this, and let me clear this out here, is that deny always overrides allow. So if a user is a member of one group that's been granted full control permission, and the user is a member of another group that's been denied full control permission, then the end result will be deny. Matter of fact, even if this user was a member of 10 different groups, all of which were granted the allow full control permission, and the user is a member of one group which has been denied, the end result is still deny. Okay, so the one thing to always keep in mind is deny will override allow in every situation. And it's for that reason that whenever we check a deny box, when we go to click OK, we get a warning message from the operating system saying, are you sure you want to do this? Because as soon as you check that deny box, that user, that group, whoever you've checked that box for, they will be denied no matter what else has been selected. Now again, these rules hold true whether we're talking about permissions for a file or a folder in NTFS, or if we're talking about shared folder permissions, printer permissions, or Active Directory object permissions. Same rules always apply. Alright, well, what's going on with Global Mantics today? Well, first of all, we're going to continue to be working in the Chicago office in the North America domain. Again, just as we saw in the last video, the Chicago office has 80 users broken down as follows: 10 upper management, 10 sales staff, 50 call center workers, 5 call center managers, and 5 IT administrators. And I will tell you that the main focus right now is going to be on these call center workers. Or we could even say the call center workers / managers. To continue on, let's just make sure we have everything in place here. We have an OU structure which has a couple of top-level OUs, one for Chicago, one for Dallas. The Chicago OU is broken down further into sales, operations, call center, and management. And then again, the main one we want to pay attention to right now is that the call center OU then has 5 child OUs within it for the users who report to each of the 5 call center managers. There's also a global security group called IT admins, but for right now, the main focus is right here. It's all about the call center. And the reason why is because the company help desk has recently determined that it can become more efficient and secure by having call center personnel contact their immediate supervisor if they forget their password and need it reset. See, help desk can really get inundated with some of these phone calls, which end up taking a lengthy amount of time because the help desk personnel has to go through and verify who the person is and validate that everything is on the up and up, and then go through the process in some cases of writing a ticket to go ahead and have a password reset. Well, that can all be done much more efficiently if you have the users going to their own manager or supervisor. Since each supervisor only has 10 people on their team, that supervisor would only have to deal with 10 people. And not only that, but that supervisor would also know who the 10 people are and wouldn't really have to go through the lengthy efforts to validate. And that's why it's not only more efficient, but it's also more secure, is because a supervisor is going to know who their own personnel are, whereas a help desk person can't possibly keep track of every single person in the company and know them personally. So, with that all being said, what we need to do is, first of all, the call center managers need to be given Active Directory privileges to reset passwords for the users on their teams. So we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to actually give them the permission or delegate that out to them. And then also a custom tool is going to need to be designed for the managers. And this tool must be something that's very simple to use because, see, call center managers, well, they're not IT trained. It's not their job to be managing our network. It's their job to be managing the people in the call center. And so we need to give them a tool that is very simple to use to reset those passwords. Alright, well, it's time to now go take a look at the operating system itself. I'm going to show you how to set these individual permissions on Active Directory objects. And then I'm going to show you how we can use the delegation of control wizard to perform some of the more common delegation operations. And then also I'll show you how to create a custom MMC, which is going to be that simple tool for the managers to use. Alright, let's go over to a server right now. Now for this demonstration, I'm going to connect with Chicago DC1, which is a domain controller for the North America domain in the Chicago office. And since we're looking to manage Active Directory and specifically manage objects in the Chicago office, that is the computer we would want to connect to. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the remote desktop icon for that particular server. And now that we're connected, we need to go into Active Directory. So I'm going to click Start, Administrative Tools, and select Active Directory Users and Computers. Now the first thing I want to show you here in Active Directory is the breakdown that we were just talking about as far as the scenario goes. There's a container for the Chicago and the Dallas office. If I expand Chicago, you'll see there's a breakdown for the 4 different departments. And then if I expand Call Center, you'll see that there is a breakdown for each of the 5 supervisors. Okay, so each of these supervisors, you'll notice as I scroll down through here, has 10 users working for them. Now, if you are trying to follow along with this video, please take a moment to pause the video and create at least one of these teams on your computer. Now, the first thing I want to show you here as far as delegation goes is I want to show you that every Active Directory object does have a set of permissions. Now, just to show you this, I'm going to start off with a user account. I'm going to go ahead and right click on Brooks Greenberg here and go to Properties. Once on the property sheet, you want to go to the Security tab. You see the Security tab up here? You don't? Okay, you're right. I don't either. How about that? No, I'm just kidding with you. By default, you're not going to see a Security tab. Okay, so by default, you can't manage permissions or Active Directory permissions through this interface. So let me show you how you would do this. Let me go ahead and cancel out of this window. What you want to do is go up to the View menu and select Advanced Features. You'll notice when I select Advanced Features that my list got a bit longer here. There's some additional containers that you otherwise wouldn't have seen. And pretty much what's going on here is without selecting Advanced Features, Microsoft has chosen to hide certain things from the average administrator. Only a skilled administrator who knows specifically that they're trying to get to a certain place should be able to do certain things. And one of those things is managing Active Directory permissions. So let me go ahead and expand Chicago and Call Center and click on Team Divini here again. And let's right click on Brooks Greenberg and select Properties once again. Now you'll notice that there are many more tabs than there used to be, but most specifically there is a Security tab. If I click on that Security tab, you will see that just like we saw just a few moments ago with an NTFS folders permissions, the window is pretty much the same. You have a list of users and groups, and then down here you have a list of permissions and checkboxes for allow or deny. The difference is that with Active Directory permissions, there's a lot more to choose from. Okay, as you can see, you can get quite granular with things. And along with that granularity comes confusion. Okay, now let me go ahead and cancel out of here. I'm going to go ahead and select this organizational unit, this container, right click, Properties, and go to its Security tab. And you'll notice that there is still a list, but it's not quite as long a list. And part of why it's not as long a list is because we're looking at an organizational unit now, not a user. And so different Active Directory objects are going to have different permissions. And along those same lines, let me go ahead and click on Advanced. And this will show us our special permissions. If I go in to edit a special permission, now you'll see that we can get very granular. Look at that list, and going and going and going. And that's only for the specific permissions for this object only. Look at that list. I can choose to manage this object or many other types of objects within this container. Okay, so there's a lot of granularity, and with that granularity comes a lot of power. Okay, you can break it right down to one tiny little specific, you can do this, but that's all. But like I said before, along with that power comes confusion. So because of that confusion, let me hit cancel out of here and cancel out of here and cancel one more time out of here. Microsoft has given us something called the Delegation of Control Wizard. And this wizard is going to help us to go ahead and assign permissions that would be used for a lot of common tasks. And so in this instance, what we want to do is we want to allow the manager of this team, so Divini, we want Divini to be able to go ahead and manage these 10 users. I'm going to right click on this container and select Delegate Control. And this takes us into the Delegation of Control wizard. Let me go ahead and move this wizard down a little bit here. Let me go ahead and click Next on the welcome screen, because the first thing that we need to do in this wizard is we need to determine what user or group we're going to allow a certain level of permissions over the object that we're running this on. So in this case, the organizational unit Team Divini. And since it's Team Divini, I'm thinking that Divini is the user that we should add. So let me go ahead and click on Add. And I will tell you that I happen to know that Mr. Divini's first name is Sam, so it's S. Divini. Let me check names to make sure I typed that right. Yep. Okay, S. Divini, click OK. And now that we've selected the user, we'll go ahead and click on Next. We need to select what task it is that we want to delegate out to this user. Well, in our Global Mantics scenario, we said that we want each of the call center supervisors to be able to reset passwords for their users when they forget them. And sure enough, on the list, here it is. Reset user passwords and force password change at next logon, which that force password change at next logon, that's because what will happen is that the supervisor will assign a temporary password as part of the process, which means you're going to want the user to give themselves a more secure password that only they know the first time they log on. So we check the box and click Next and Finish. That's all there is to it. That's got to be the easiest wizard in the world. Now, to verify that this has indeed worked, let's go ahead and right click on Team Divini again, go to Properties, go to the Security tab, and you'll notice that S. Divini is now on the list. If I scroll down here, you'll notice that the checkboxes, well, there's only one. It's an Allow checkbox under Special Permissions. Now, because it's a special permission, we have to click on Advanced. And then here's S. Divini Special. Click on Edit. And here, you'll notice that there is a checkbox for Reset Password. Now I can scroll all the way up, all the way down. There's no other checkboxes, just the one for Reset Password. Now you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, you know, that's great. It was a little wizard, couple screens. Might not have been any easier than coming to this window and checking one box for Reset Password. And you might be right if that's what you're thinking. But remember that you may not know where that one checkbox is. You may not know where the Reset Password checkbox is unless this is something you're doing all the time. So, for instance, you'll notice that up here it says applies to descendant user objects. See, by default, when you assign a special permission, it goes to, and you know what, it's hard to see. Let me move this out of the way. There we go. It defaults to this object only, as we saw just a few minutes ago. And when we're on this object only, notice there is no setting for Reset Password. So you wouldn't have found that checkbox. You would have had to have known to scroll down here in this list first, all the way down here to Descendant User Objects. And then you'd have to scroll down and find that Reset Password checkbox. Now, the box has gone away, so let me go ahead and hit Cancel, because we don't want to undo this. And just to verify it's still there, let me highlight, click Edit, and it's there. So we're still good. So we have successfully assigned the permission to Sam Divini to be able to reset passwords for these 10 users who work for him, who he is their supervisor. But there's still a problem. And the problem is that although he's been given these permissions, Sam doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't work with computers. He's a call center manager. He knows how to work with people. He knows how to work with phone systems. He knows how to work with customers. He's not necessarily very computer proficient. So what we want to do is go ahead and create a tool for Sam to use. So let me go ahead and close out of Active Directory Users and Computers. I'm going to actually bring this back again so we can see what computer we're on. And what I want to do now is click Start, and in my Start search window, I'm going to type MMC, which stands for Microsoft Management Console, and hit Enter. And here it takes us into, let me blow this up, it takes us into a customizable tool. See, the fact of the matter is all the different tools, or I should say many of the different tools that we use, almost all of the tools that we use, believe it or not, are a form of Microsoft Management Console. It's just a matter of they've been pre-created by Microsoft. But they also give you the blank slate to go ahead and create your own tool. So, what do we want to do to create this tool for Sam to be able to reset his users' passwords? Well, the first thing I need to do is click on File and select Add Remove Snap-in. Each of the individual utilities that we find in these different management consoles are called snap-ins. So as a for instance, here is Active Directory, and it's hard to expand this all the way over, but it's users and computers is what the rest of that says. Okay, and that is exactly like the tool that we have right here under Start Administrative Tools. That's just like this tool right here. Let me go ahead and click Add, because that is the tool that we want to use. You'll notice if I scroll down through the list, you'll probably see some familiar names of other tools that we have looked at or you've seen, or you may have even just found on menus before. But for right now, we only want to work with Active Directory users and computers because we're still trying to create a tool to be able to reset this password. Let me click OK. Let me go ahead and move this over a little bit. We could stop here and just give this tool a custom name so that Sam would understand what it is. But see, the problem here is that Sam would still have to know how to expand this down, connect to the domain, expand Chicago, expand call center, find his own team. He'd have to select a user, right-click, and reset password. Okay, that's a lot of work, and that's a lot for Sam to know. And I'll tell you what, he's going to fight you on this one. He's going to say, you know what, that's just too much. You guys keep this at help desk. So we want to make this even simpler for Sam. Now the first thing we want to do is get rid of all this extra stuff. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and right click on Team Divini, and I'm going to select New Window from here. And you'll notice that what that does is it gets rid of all the other containers. It just shows Team Divini. That's it. And here's the 10 users. Now just to make sure that this is truly the only window in this console, I need to go up to the window menu. You'll notice that we still have both windows. Here's the original one with Active Directory. I'm going to select that one again, and then I'm going to close it. Now be careful, don't click this X up here on the blue bar, because that will close the entire tool. We just want to close this X, which is the one window within the tool, and that will leave us with the other window still open. So now we've made it a little bit easier, right? Matter of fact, we've probably made it easy enough that we could pretty easily train these call center managers to know what to do. I mean, if we save this one specifically for Sam, and Sam Divini says, all right, well, yeah, that's my team, and well, Brooks has just told me that he forgot his password, I could just right click and select reset password. But I'll tell you what, we're going to make this even easier. Couple things we need to do. One, I'm going to go to View, and we're going to select Add Remove Columns. And what we want to do, just to make sure that there's no confusion at all, is I'm going to add last name and first name. And we're going to, let's see here, remove and move down. All right, so we have name, first name, last name. Click OK. And you'll see here that everything reset again. So I actually forgot that happens. Every time you change the columns, it resets the whole thing here. And you'll notice it's the only window that's even open. So, once again, let's go ahead and Team Divinity, right click, new window from here. And then go back to the original console and close that window. Alright, sorry about that. But anyway, the point I was getting at is now we made it real easy for Sam to be able to see the names of all of his users. Okay, as opposed to just the computer logon name. Now the next thing we're going to do to really simplify this is I'm going to right click on Team Divinity and we're going to select New Task Pad View. A task pad view is a really cool way of making it that all you have to do is click buttons to do things. So let me click New Task Pad View and click Next. And the first thing I get to do is I get to choose, do I want a vertical list with the buttons off on the left or a horizontal list with the buttons at the bottom? Everyone has their own preference, and quite honestly, I could probably ask Sam what he'd like to see. But for right now, let's just go with a horizontal list and the buttons at the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And we're going to say just for the selected tree item. So only this one container do we want to apply this particular task pad view to. And click Next. And we'll go ahead and give this view the name Reset Password. How about that, huh? Or even Reset Passwords. We'll make it plural. And go ahead and click on Next. And now there's a checkbox here asking me if I want to add a new task after this wizard completes. Because we just created the view, the general idea of how this is going to look. But now we have to actually create the buttons. We have to actually put the tasks in. So I am going to leave that box checked and click Finish. And now I get the new task wizard. Click Next. We have to determine what type of command we want to create a button for. And in this case, we're going to leave it at a menu command. Why? Because resetting the password was a menu item, right? We right click on the user and the menu pops up. And then go ahead and click on Next. And now we can pick any of our users. It doesn't matter. We just need to use an example of one of the accounts. And then we select what menu item we want to add. So here is Reset Password. Now click Next. Task name, we'll actually leave it with the name Reset Password, and the description is Resets Password. All right, that makes sense. Click Next. And now we need to give an icon to the Reset Password task. So we'll go ahead and, how about the keys? That's a good one, right? Or let's see if there's anything else might be more fun than a key. Yeah, how about this? The user's lost. He needs help. Huh? Now, let's go ahead and let's just use the keys because we're resetting the password here. Click Next. And now we have the Reset Password task complete. Now, I could check this box that says when I click Finish, run it again, meaning if I want to add additional tasks. But in this instance, that's all that Sam is being asked to do, is reset the password. So we'll uncheck the box and click Finish. And we're done. So now what we have is we have a view to where all you see is a bunch of users, and when you click on one of them, you get a button for resetting password. And when I click that button, the dialog box comes up to put in a temporary password, and you'll notice there's the checkbox for user must change password at next logon. And the other interesting thing is, and this is kind of cool, this is something that I believe is new to Server 2008. It may have been included with a service pack on Server 2003. But right here, we can go ahead and unlock the user's account. Because very often when a user has forgotten their password, well, they go ahead and try to log in a bunch of times first, and then they lock out their account. And it never fails. What used to happen is users will call into help desk, and they'll get their password reset. But if the help desk person didn't think to look and see if the account was locked, they would just go ahead and say, all right, you're all set, and hang up. And then the user can't log in again, and then the user would call back to help desk and realize that they had to have their account unlocked. So now we can do that right here in the same screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. We don't need to actually reset that password right now. The only other thing that I want to do is I want to make this so simple for Sam that there's just no additional distractions. And the way we do that is by going up to the View menu and selecting Customize. And then get rid of just all the checkboxes. Just get rid of everything. Click OK. Go ahead and click Save As. And what we would do is we would realistically put this on Sam's desktop or put it on Sam's start menu. Okay, you'd put it somewhere convenient for Sam. But for right now, we're just going to put it on the desktop just so we can save it somewhere. And I'm going to go ahead and call this Reset Passwords. Click Save. And I'm going to actually close the tool. Because what I want to show you is, check this out. This would be sitting on Sam's desktop. So we can pretend we're looking at Sam's machine right now. And if any of his 10 users came up to him and said, you know what, I just got back from vacation and I just completely forgot my password. Can you help me out? All Sam has to do is double click on this tool, and this is what Sam will see. Sam will see a list of accounts, right? A list of users who work for him. And we'll say that Jim Connors here forgot his password. Highlight Jim Connors, reset password, put in a temporary password, and click OK. Aha! See, I put in a password that didn't meet the complexity requirements of our network. So even though we have gone ahead and given this manager the permission, matter of fact, it's not even the manager, I'm still logged in as administrator technically, we still have to meet our password complexity requirements. So let's go ahead and reset that again, put in something that's a little bit more secure, meets all the requirements, click OK. Now the password has been changed and everything works wonderfully. So now it looks as though we have solved the dilemma that Global Mantix is facing. We've met our goals. We've gone ahead and delegated out the permission to reset passwords to call center managers and created a nifty, easy to use custom tool for those managers to be able to reset the passwords with. So that's pretty much how you delegate control over Active Directory. And after watching this video, you should now know how to, first of all, assign Active Directory permissions to users and groups manually. But of course, as we saw, there's a lot of granularity, and along with that granularity comes power, but along with that power comes confusion. So to help alleviate some of that confusion, you should also now know how to use the Delegation of Control wizard to assign Active Directory permissions on some of your more common tasks. And then also, you should now know how to create all kinds of custom Microsoft Management Consoles for your regular users to be able to use when you delegate out some level of control to them.